Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock, and we will start this evening with the roll call. Suzanne.
Thank you. Mayor Levy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harvey. Here. Councilmember Carr. Councilmember Matthews.
Present.
Councilmember Sonier.
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, if everyone will please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, agenda item number 4, and Suzanne.
Thank you, Mayor Levy. As we talked about the last council meeting, we had a very successful election this year. We had record high ballots that were returned. We got the results out in a pretty timely manner, and everything went very smoothly. Well, I couldn't have done the election or the job by myself. A big part of what I did was with the help of the election judges, and we've invited them here tonight. We'd like to honor them, and we'd like to thank them for helping us as a city have a successful election. They put in a total, collaboratively, of 231 hours. That's how many hours were spent by the election judges working on the election. They were professional, detail-oriented, and dedicated. As you know, Council, I had something in my personal life occur that I had to leave for a little while, and at no time was there any low in the election. They kept it going and all of that. I'd like to recognize all of them, starting with Shirley Dalpit. If you guys would want to come up. Shirley is coming up right now. She was our lead election judge. She was in charge. She was the one that told everybody when to be here, told them what they needed to do, kept everybody in line, communicated with them every night so the next morning they would know when they had to report. She was amazing, and so I'd like to thank Shirley. And we also have Larry Larson and Ellen Haase. If you guys come up, please. And do we have anyone else, Shirley?
They were supposed to be here, but I guess.
Okay. So Larry Larson, this was his first time working on elections, and he did a great job. And then Ellen has been one of our judges in the past, and we brought her back again this year, and she did a fantastic job. Both Shirley and Ellen also do election judging for the county. So I just want to thank them for all their dedication and hard work to make the election successful this year. So thank you. While the mayor is coming around, the other 3 election judges that aren't here were Gwen Collins, Rita Randolph, and Jeanette Brown.
So on behalf of the whole council, and certainly the city of Woodland Park, we want to offer you the mayor's bid for outstanding service to our community. Just let you know how much we appreciate everything you did to make this election successful. Thank you very much. Thank you. I have one question. Do election judges always sit together? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As the mayor's returning back to his seat, when I walked into the election judges' the room and let them know that Suzanne would be taking care of some family emergency things, Shirley just turned and looked at me and said, "I got it." And she did, with the help of many others, so thank you.
That's great, and thank you, Suzanne. Thank you very, very much. Okay, we'll move on. Suzanne, looks like this is for you.
Thank you, Mayor Levy. This evening, we have an appointment to the Board of Adjustment. On January 25th, Michael Marty submitted his resignation from the VOA. In addition, we currently have 1 opening on the VOA for an alternate member. On May 22nd, Randy Carlson submitted his application as a regular member to the Board of Adjustment. He will be, he is not able to be here tonight at the council meeting. A copy of his application you all received in your packet this week, and the term of the office for his membership would be expiring January 15th, 2018, and the staff recommends that Mr. Carlson be appointed to the BOA, and he would be administered the oath of office before the next BOA meeting, if he's appointed.
Okay, terrific. Council, questions? Mr. Carlson?
About Mr. Carlson?
Who?
Yeah, his name is, his name, I thought you were talking
Yeah,
about
no.
Bob Carlson.
No.
Ghost of Bob. How often does the Board of Adjustment meet?
They typically meet once a month, and Sally could answer more details about that.
They do have a regularly scheduled meeting on the third Monday of each month if we have a case. However, we don't have cases every month. In fact, last year, I believe, and John, our chairman, is here this evening, about 6 times last year.
Sally, I had a question, and you've met this person?
I sure have, yes.
Based on their background involvement in the city, based on what we have, you feel comfortable with them being involved in the
Very
Board of Adjustment?
comfortable, yes. He's a local business owner, he's a hobbyist carpenter, and he just completed an addition to his home, which was the former Jim Wolf's home. So he lives right here in town, and it's a great way for Randy to be involved in our
And
community.
a lot of issues come up probably related around construction, I assume.
It is, yes,
that's
mostly variances for setbacks or heights or sign code issues or things like that.
Okay. I just kind of wanted to be sure, since he's not here to talk to, what you felt about it.
Yeah, he apologized, he had a trip already planned.
Thank you.
And Sally, refresh my memory, how many people sit on the Board of Adjustment?
There are 5 regular members and we have 2 alternates.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, if no further questions, we'll just call for a motion to approve both applicants.
Whenever.
And the, okay, there's not an alternate.
Not yet,
Okay.
just one.
I motion, we move to appoint.
Okay, so
To
the
approve
motion
Mr.
is...
Carlson.
Second.
Sounds good, Suzanne?
Thank you. Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, we're going to move on to our proclamation in support of the right of silence, which I believe we've done every year for the last 13, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd like to read this proclamation and maybe have one of the ladies come up, and Debbie, if you'd like to come up and tell us a little bit about it first, and then I will read the proclamation.
We're actually going to post the picture, is that okay?
You can do whatever you'd like.
Well, cool. So,
Just,
right,
if you'll do me a favor, just give us your name and
Name.
address, please.
okay, Deborah Maresca, 421 Old Kathleen Trail, Guffey, Colorado, 80820. And I'm here representing Mountaintop Cycling Club, which is based in Woodland Park. And the Ride of Silence is an annual event. It takes place May 18th. We'll have Fox 21 coverage again this year, so we're real excited about that. We've sent out invitations to over 100 cyclists, so we're hoping to have a better performance. Of course, the weather hurt us last year, but anyways, and it's just to bring more awareness to cyclists, safety, rules of the road for motorists and cyclists, not just cyclists. And that will be our kickoff for our year of events with our Monday night rides, our Wednesdays, and then all of our Rocky Mountain State games and on and on and on. So we have several events this year. So we're real excited, and we're lining up some guest speakers and things. Any questions for me?
Council, any questions?
Well, I'm so glad. I thought I was gonna have to take the fifth, but it's the Ride of Silence.
Yes, it
Oh,
is,
thank
the
you so
Ride of
much.
Silence.
Yeah,
It's-
very good.
It's supposed to be like a funeral procession, more or less, where it's just quiet, you're honoring cyclists that have been injured or killed, and so it's just real quiet, it's real short, simple.
And so for this proclamation, which I have in front of me, doesn't have a date, and the reason is because you have events during the year. Is that correct?
Right, it's May 18th is the actual date of the Ride of Silence. That's the recognition.
And I participated last year on your behalf, Mr. Mayor.
Would you like to do that again this year?
She was on Fox 21 News.
That's right.
There you go.
Sure.
Okay, that'll work out great for me. Okay, well, thank you very much, Deb.
Okay, and can we pose for a picture? Or?
Sure. Why don't we read the proclamation first,
Okay.
and then we'll pose for a picture? Okay? Thank you very much. So, the Ride of Silence proclamation, whereas what began as a one-time event in 2003 to honor a fallen bicyclist is now an international phenomenon occurring around the globe. And whereas the Ride of Silence is a silent, slow-paced bicycle ride to honor those who have been injured or killed while cycling on public roadways. And whereas composed of many but riding as one, the Ride of Silence is a quiet call to the public, announcing that public safety is the responsibility of all users of public roads. And whereas the City of Woodland Park is committed to providing a safe bicycle environment and proudly supports the Ride of Silence. Now therefore, I, Neil Levy, Mayor of the City of Woodland Park, do hereby recognize the Ride of Silence. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Woodland Park to be affixed this 21st day of April 2016. Thank you.
And I want to introduce our club treasurer, our club secretary, Penny Edelby, and my vice president, Kathy Keeler, and Richard Metcalf. So thank you very much.
Sure, thank
Do you have a-
Thank the Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Maybe you should be there.
Norma, is this good? Where do you want it?
You want to get a few on each side?
Don't be shy, don't be shy.
We'll have two on each side. There we go. Okay. And don't forget, they don't have air conditioning.
But they might. No. That's why we're still smiling.
Pearly whites, let's see them.
No flash.
Okay, well,
So I'm going to take up my. Stay still. Sorry about that. There we go.
Oh, we've got pins.
Here we go here.
Pins for you.
Okay, I have one of those for you.
Oh, great.
It's a good trade. They abandoned you, Neil.
Oh, my goodness, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I like the handle.
That will go in place.
yes, that will go on the plate.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yes, plans.
What does that kill you? Showboater today.
State game.
Okay, we have no additions or deletions tonight. We'll move on to the consent calendar, and Suzanne.
Thank you, Mayor Levy. This evening on tonight's consent calendar, we have the minutes of the April 7, 2016 regular city council meeting. We also have the February 2016 statement of expenditures, And then we have 6C is we have a contract that I'd like to read in a little bit more detail into the record before you approve it on the consent calendar. This is a request for approval of a construction services contract with TZAC Heavy Equipment in the amount of $908,312.23 for the construction of the Fountain Creek Stabilization and Erosion Control Project, AKA Safeway Reach. This will authorize the mayor to sign said contract and authorize the city manager or public works director to negotiate and approve change orders up to an amount not to exceed 10% of the total contract.
Thank you, Suzanne. Questions? John?
Yeah, I have questions for Bill. Just trying to understand the budget. And as I looked at that line item in the 2016 approved budget, 1.32 mil. There was also 370,000 in 2015. Same line item. And a year-end projection for last year of 316,000. So the contract value, I guess, is 908,000. Are there other work to be done in that line item?
Yes, there are. I didn't bring my budget information, but there was also design costs for this project. Last year, there's design of projects that are spin-off from the Stormwater Master Plan. There were expenses last year, 2015, for development of the Stormwater Master Plan that were funded by that line.
Okay.
The total budget for that line was 1.32 million, as you mentioned.
Correct.
And we initially had an estimate for this project of 1.2.
Correct.
And so that 120,000 was, I think, 30 for design for the following year's work, and then also some design for drainage work on Highway 67 for the total of that 1.32 million. The delta between this contract plus the authorization for the contingencies is about 200,000. We'll set that aside for use for other projects.
Okay. And a question about the bids. You got 5. Quite a spread over those 5. I think the most expensive or the highest cost bid was 60% over TZAC before the modification. Is that unusual?
Not necessarily in a project of this complexity and scope. Sun Construction, who is the highest bidder, hasn't done a whole lot of this kind of work. TZAC has done a tremendous amount of this type of work down in Colorado Springs on Sand Creek. They've also done a lot of work very similar to this for CDOT. They have their own riprap source, their own quarry. So the TZAC has also worked several projects in the past with our design team. So we feel very confident that TZAC's bid is a reasonable bid. If you know, the engineer's estimate was around just shy of 1.2. So we feel that spread's not unusual, and I think it spreads right around the engineer's estimate in a nice way. So.
Okay. Thank you. So you'll ride off into the sunset feeling very happy about this contract.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The work here is finished almost, so.
Thank you.
With a smile on his face.
This is the culmination of many, many years of planning, design, study, construction, and now we finish the last reach within the city limits of city-controlled property to stabilize Fountain Creek. And I think that's a huge accomplishment for the city. It's been a long time coming. It started back in '94 and really started in earnest in '98 and '99. And we've diligently worked our way forward, and we've got a lot to be proud of in this creek and what we've done.
Oh, I agree. Thank you.
And if you could, you just mentioned it, but that is city-owned property. The fact that we call it the Safeway Reach is just because it started with the Safeway project, but that is property, real estate owned by the city, correct?
Correct. Safeway Reach is a geographical reference.
Thank you.
Mayor, before we, please.
I don't remember really talking about the details of the design. Is it going to be underground? Is it going to be still visible? What is the details of the construction?
Oh, gosh, I'm going to get my
You can make it simple.
limelight here, so. Now, this portion of the creek will remain open channel.
Okay.
So we looked at several different alternatives and all, but we'll keep it in an open channel, meandering channel plan form with some grouted boulder drop structures so that we can flatten out the slope of the creek. Currently, the slope is too steep, that's why it's eroding and unstable. So we'll flatten it out by grouted boulder drops, and then we'll line the toe of the slopes with riprap to stabilize the toes of the slope. So it'll look similar to the reaches above Sheridan, but different. It will not be in a culvert, it'll be open.
Okay, now I recall there's a big drain coming in that's blocked off, right behind Safeway, and then there's a pipe that's sticking out there. Is that going to be, how is that going to be addressed?
The large 60-inch pipe
Yes.
that discharges from the Safeway parking area, and I think it collects some CDOT drainage, that'll remain as is, but that'll discharge into one of the areas of the grouted boulder drops to help dissipate that energy and confluence that flow from that pipe with the main stem of Fountain Creek.
So no cement basin. I mean, there's still going to be washout. There'll still be wash away, right?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but there'll be boulders, grouted boulders there, which will have the look of stacked rocks,
Okay.
but they will be anchored together with concrete. If you'd like to see and study the details more, I've got the plans, and we can certainly do that, but I'll continue to answer your
Well, I guess
questions to be able to vote on
I'm just
this.
curious. I mean, it is washing away. I mean, I do go to
That's why we're
Starbucks every-
stabilizing it.
I mean, it is coming in towards the road there.
Absolutely, and that's why we're stabilizing it.
But
That's what our
it
design
sounds
did.
like if you stabilize it, wouldn't you want cement there to keep it from eroding anymore? I mean, I understand how just natural stuff there is going to cause it not to erode later on, 10 years from now.
Well, you'll notice at that outfall of that pipe currently, there's large boulders there.
Right,
And
yeah,
there's been
that's
large
true.
boulders stacked there since that was installed. And that's a similar concept that we'll use, and those boulders will will provide protection of those easily erodible sand soils and keep those from eroding away. And so we hold things in place with boulders, and these grouted boulder drops, think of stair steps.
Okay.
Those will be large boulders, and they will have concrete matrix around those boulders to help hold them in place, and those will be keyed into the foundation along with sheet pile cutoff walls at each of those drops.
Okay, that makes sense. I can see what you're talking about, the big rocks around that 60-inch pipe, and you're right, that's not eroded at all. Okay.
That whole channel will be lined with boulders of that size, of 36 inches and
just
larger,
just the one side, the other side's not eroded.
all along the whole reach.
Okay.
That's why it costs $908,000. A lot of big boulders that got to be brought up from Canyon City. So there'll be a lot of big boulders, but we'll try to keep as much natural plan form and natural materials as we can, but we'll stabilize those toes and those drop structures with large boulders.
Okay.
Anything else?
Council, at this time, I'd like to acknowledge that the council did receive a letter from Todd Wiseman earlier this week that had questions as it related to many different projects, but it keyed in on this particular project and the expense associated with it. We discussed that letter at the work session this evening, but I did want to acknowledge that we received that and we have provided a response to him.
Thank you. Any other questions, council?
This is basically, I'm new and I just want to understand, coming to the final expense that the city has in that creek, huh? Except with the land that DDA has? Or will there be more expenses along that creek?
This is the last piece of city-owned property that needs extensive work and stabilization. You are correct that in the DDA property, with the headwaters of Fountain Creek, the channel originates there, and depending on how that's developed, and depending on who does what there may be some improvements required at those headwalls. It's stable as it is today, but depending on how it's developed, there may be changes. Who would pay for those changes? That's up for negotiation and discussions. Downstream of Aspen Garden Way, all the way to Walmart, is private property. Some of that is in the county, some of that's within the city limits, but it's all on private property. Once you get to the improvements that were made at Walmart, that tract of property has been dedicated to the city, and we maintain that. So there will always be ongoing maintenance costs for these facilities, but as far as large capital expenditures for the city, this should be the last significant one. Now, that said, what happens between Aspen Garden Way and Walmart? That's up for discussion and conjecture, and how that develops and how that happens, only time will tell. But that property is not owned by the city at this time.
Thank
Does that
you.
answer your question?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, if not, council will call for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Thank you. Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. We have no unfinished business tonight. We'll move on to ordinances on initial posting, and welcome Sally Riley.
Thank you very much, Mayor Levy, council members. This first ordinance, 1278, is on initial posting. It is an application from 101 Boundary Street LLC and Mr. Carl Anderson, who owns property at 101 South Boundary Street. And this is an existing cabin that has been used commercially, zoned commercially, and now wants to utilize it for a residence, which it was originally built for. So with that brief introduction, as a quasi-judicial case, land use case, we are requesting that you approve the initial posting and set the public hearing for May 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Question?
Just for clarification, right next door is a big garage storage unit business? Okay.
Yeah, as well as a couple of small homes.
It's right behind Cirque, Jimmy John's, okay.
Yes.
Anything else? Okay, if not, we'll call for a motion to consider 1278 on initial posting.
I move approval of ordinance 1278 as presented tonight.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Excuse me, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you weren't there. I'm sorry.
I apologize. Matthews?
Yes.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, Sally, if you'd like to continue.
Thank you. The second ordinance on initial posting is 1279. This is to vacate Trail Ridge Apartments, two very small sections of utility easements. We discovered encroachments on these easements after an ALTA survey was done. So this is to clean that up, and we have received no objections to these very small pieces to be vacated. We would request that you approve on initial posting and set the public hearing for May 5th.
Thank you. Any questions on ordinance 1279? Okay, a motion to approve on initial posting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Okay, we'll move on to public hearings, and number 9A and Kip Wiley.
Thank you. Ordinance 1276 authorizes the city to borrow $6.5 million for the wastewater plant expansion. Back in February of 2015, we had closed on the initial $2 million for the total the first $2 million for the total $8.5 million project. This ordinance 1276 is to approve, if you approve, will allow us to withdraw the remaining $6.5 million to expand the plant. That expansion includes everything in the process, everything from biological treatment to settling to disinfection and sludge dewatering. Our bond counsel, Mario Trimble with Q-Tech Rock, is here to answer any other questions that you guys may have in regards to the loan.
Mr. Trimble, would you like to come forward and we'll see if we have a question? Counsel?
Kip, in the presentation during the work session, you had a conservative estimate of the interest payment at 2.5, and in the staff report, we have 3.0. What do you think it'll be?
Well, now, I can't give a projection, but the reason we always, we prefer to do the ordinance as a parameters ordinance, approving up to a certain interest rate, and even the principal amount of the loan would be a not-to-exceed amount. The reason being market conditions are what they are, and this allows us to get the authority for the loan in hand when we go back to the authority and back to the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority and finalize the terms. It doesn't mean that we will go up to 3 or 4.5 or whatever that maximum is. I think it's 4.5 actually in the ordinance. If council gives direction to staff that we shouldn't go above 2.5, or be advised we want 2.5 or whatever that number is, and that's what we push for. At the same time, when you're dealing with the authority, they have their formulas and the rates sort of dictated by the day. They'll say to us, this is the rate that we're looking at. Is that a good rate? And then we have to make a decision on the day.
Council may recall that we followed the same process with the loan for the Aquatic Center. As Mario accurately states, it's a parameters loan. That percent is kind of the upper limit because we're not sure what the market's going to do. So I think for the Aquatic Center, it was either 4.5 or 5% that was in the paperwork. We actually got 3.4. So our team works hard to get, of course, the best rate possible. But what we don't want to do is have to keep coming back and forth to council as those rates keep adjusting. So it's thus the parameters.
Everything we've heard, and again, we can't make predictions, but we can tell you that so far what we've heard from the authority is that a good estimate would be somewhere in the 2.25 to 2.5 range. I think that's accurate.
2 to 2.25.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. 2 to 2.25. I'm always a bit conservative.
How far out till we know that number? I mean, are we weeks away or months away before we know what that ends up being?
That actually allows us to cover one point that Aaron Smith, our city attorney, or your city attorney, my friend, spoke about at the last meeting. At the April 5th meeting, we stated that the loan would close on May 1st. We've gotten an updated schedule from the authority, and we're driven by their schedule in some respects because they are funding this loan, as I said at the April 5th meeting, from the proceeds of a bond offering that they're in the process of completing. So once they know what their rate's going to be on their bonds, they're able to tell us with a lot more accuracy what the rate will be on ours. And I believe the rate's going to be set in about the second week in May.
Okay, so soon.
Yes. Oh, yes. We're planning to close on the 24th.
When you're talking market rates, if we're talking a long period of time, then obviously there's a lot more fluctuation possibly. So that's good if it's that reasonably soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Go ahead.
Kip, I didn't ask during the work session, when will the project start and when would it end?
Are you referencing construction?
Yes.
Okay. If everything goes as planned, we would like to break ground late summer with the sludge tank of this year.
Wow.
If that doesn't happen, it'll be early spring of 17.
Okay. So we would know, I mean, well, that's all I have, thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, the purpose of the work session was to discuss a way to meet one of the requirements of the loan, and that was to guarantee or identify a 10% reserve. I assume this ordinance and the loan that we're going to attempt to get in May is in fact based on something we haven't done yet.
And that goes back, if you don't mind, that goes back to this concept of authorization. We're not locking ourselves, or you're not locking yourselves. I always say we. I apologize.
You're part of us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I feel like a part of it. This gives us the authority to move forward, but it doesn't lock the city into any obligation. That comes when we sign the loan agreement itself. And actually, I'd like to speak to that 10% concept. It's a coverage factor. When I think of a reserve, we think of monies that you can't touch for any other purpose. This just says we're going to increase our rates such that the revenue the city receives is at least 110% of what would be required after taking out operations and maintenance expenses and other costs. The revenue that we receive as a city is at least 10% above the debt service requirement on the loan. But it's not sequestered away, it's not reserved in the bond context.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor Pro Tem, the next agenda item is actually that discussion. One could have come before the other. It really didn't matter the sequence.
Okay.
We could argue both sides of that, but we'll cover both issues tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Would it be best if we cover both before we vote on both?
We can certainly do that.
I think that, because they are tied together.
I don't think that's an issue at all.
Okay, sounds good.
Aaron, do you-
We good with
Okay.
that?
Council can do that, absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, then, and we'll take public hearing after if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this. If not, then Kip, would you like to, thank you, Mr. Trimble. Would you like to continue then?
Yes. Next agenda item, ordinance 1277, is that monthly wastewater capital replacement fee increase to cover that 10% requirement for ordinance 1276. Ordinance 1277 basically increases wastewater capital fees, just the wastewater portion of your bill, approximately 20% effective January 1st, 2017. The reason for the effective date is because in 2017 is when that debt is due. We don't need to accumulate additional funds when we don't have the additional debt due. That's basically all of ordinance 1276, is that increase to cover the requirement for the loan. Any questions?
I'm concerned that it's too vague right now for the paper to understand what's going on and writing up the information here. The fee increases would be comparable to other cities, if you know where I'm going on this. So to understand that we're not jacking up the fees to some astronomical amount, we're right in the middle of all the cities of our size in Colorado. So I was hoping that we could have that chart up there to see, to let, I know.
We're happy to do that.
I would.
If the council would like to see the entire presentation, we're happy to do that. And we can also provide it to anyone who has that interest. And we'll also, before we get off of that, we'll also talk about Resolution 806. Next on the agenda, have a combined public hearing.
That would be
just to put
best.
your mind at ease. That will have all the information out before you begin your voting process. But if you'd like to have that presentation or key components of that, we certainly can do that this evening.
I would like to do key components of it, so this is on the record, because I don't think the work session was on video, and so, but it will be documented, right?
Yeah.
It will not. Then I say we go over this again. I'm sorry to say, council, is that okay? Or key components of it anyways?
Key components, I agree.
Okay.
I have no problem doing it.
Yeah, that was one of my concerns as well, is that this be made as clear as possible without too much detail that takes away from the
We'll have you guys.
salient point.
Absolutely. So just give us a second or two, and you can begin talking about Resolution 806 while we power stuff up too, Kip.
Okay.
Just to take advantage of the time.
Okay.
There we go.
So, Resolution 806 also accompanies Ordinance 1277. Resolution 806 is an increase in the wastewater plant investment fees, so the wastewater portion of a tap fee, by 20% in 2017. So effective January 1st, 2017, wastewater tap fees will be increased 20% compared to 2015. You saw on my presentation where we raised tap fees April 1st, 2016. We took that into account, so the increase for 2017 isn't necessarily 20% from 2016. I'll go through my presentation just as a brief review for everybody, and that could be on the record.
Could I suggest one thing that we talked about in the work session a little bit, rather than talking so much about the percentages, what it really means to somebody's bill? I think we had some comparisons dollar-wise. I think that's really significant and hits home with most people.
Okay.
If you could hit on that, I think would be important.
I'll hit on it all.
Just talk faster. How about that?
I'm going to just start from the beginning. So the reason the wastewater plant needs expansion. The hydraulic loading, or the flow that comes into the plant, has remained basically unchanged for over 5 years. However, the organic loading, or the concentration of the wastewater that enters the plant, has increased substantially. This graph here shows the increase in the organic loading to the plant. Starting from 2009 to current, that trend line is in the upward direction, and we are way above our capacity. In fact, we're at 124% of the design capacity of the existing plant. The state has requirements that when you meet 95% of your design, you need to be in construction. We've been able to move forward with operation of the plant because we're still in compliance, and we're able to meet our discharge permit. And it's allowed us to pay off debt and get more financially ready for this project, if you will.
I may insert a couple of points because I see Norma taking lots of notes, and they're just clarifying things. Kip used the term capacity and design capacity. Design capacity is the real key term here. The other term that he used is now just escaped me, and I'll bring it back up in a second.
Okay.
An important point, though, that you made during the work session is that increased load can be attributed to the fact that we conserve water more efficiently than we did in past years.
Correct, and I'll actually touch on that a little bit. As you saw on the hydraulic loading, or the hydraulic capacity, or the flow graph, it's remained constant. Population has increased, so that would tell me, since our loading is going up, our customers are conserving water, using less, so that waste stream isn't diluted as it used to be. Meeting the loan requirements, the 10% revenues over expenses. The Utilities Advisory Committee had looked into multiple ways to meet that requirement. Those consisted of cutting expenses, taking out a smaller of a loan, paying more down, more cash up front, increase in rates, and increase in tap fees. The conclusion was that since our loading had increased and we didn't see a large population growth, existing customers contribute to the increased loading, as well as new development. This plant needs to be capable to handle the new development. So both existing customers and new development would share that cost. That cost came down to a 20% split between both existing customers and plant investment fees or tap fees for the new development. And they didn't have to become effective until January 1st, 2017, when the loan payments become due. go through the calculations really fast. Revenue, here's our summary for our revenue: charges for services, capital replacement fees, and tap fees. The tap fees is a conservative estimate at 10 taps a year. Then throwing in expenses, first I'd like to mention the debt service that comes with an $8.5 million loan. The first $2 million was at 0% because we qualified for 20% green, and the annual debt service on that is $100,000 a year. The remaining 6.5 at a conservative estimate of 2.5% at $416,000 roughly. That new debt service is incorporated in the expenses here at $557,000. That $557,000 also includes the loan for the headworks. 10% overage at $153,000 for a total revenue needed of let's call it $1.7 million. So we have a shortfall of revenue of $297,000 annually. So that's the difference we need to make up to meet the loan requirements. Here is a graph showing wastewater tap fees or plant investment fees from 1997 to current. You can see tap sales are all across the board, anywhere from $27,000 to $523,000. So what's hard to meet the requirements is because you don't know how many taps you're going to sell in a year, and you still need to meet that requirement. The tap fee increase of 20%. I show on here the current tap fee of in 2015 of $5,967. We're proposing a fee of $7,160, a 20% increase.
And that's new development.
That's new development. If you recall, we increased water and sewer plant investment fees 5% effective April 1st, 2016. So the increase from 16 to 17 is only 14.3%, or $895 for plant or tap fees. The rate structure, so what we're talking about now is the 20% increase for existing customers. This was applied to the capital portion of the wastewater bill. If you recall, a wastewater bill consists of 3 revenue streams, one being O&M charges for service. The second one and the third one both fall under the capital side as charges per dwelling unit and usage of water in 1,000-gallon increments. This graph shows the rate history from 1990 to present. You will see in 1990, we added capital fees to the wastewater bill. That's the small white portion at the top of the green portion. The green portion was the service charges or the O&M. In 1990, we had a 48% increase. You can imagine that increase was put into place to fund the current plant that was built in 1992. In 1997, there was a 26% increase, and then in 2008, a 15% increase. And then what we're recommending is a 20% increase in the wastewater portion of your bill to fund and meet the requirements for the wastewater plant expansion and loan. This slide basically shows a 20% increase based off 4,000 gallons used. In 2015, the average charge for a customer using 4,000 gallons was $52.74. And that breaks it down into the O&M and the capital revenue tracks, if you will. Next slide is showing rates based off from 2015 to 16. So you recall in 2016 we raised rates annually based off 75% of the consumer price index. So from 2015 to 16, you see that change at the top. It was 4 cents in the dwelling unit charge and 1 cent in the 1,000-gallon increment charge. In 2017, we're recommending that the dwelling unit be raised to $5.54 in the usage section or portion of the bill be raised to $1.36. So at the bottom, I show the percentages. In 2016 was the 75% annual adjustment of the consumer price index. And in 17, it would be a 19% increase compared to 2016. Yes, sir.
I guess this is where I think it's important for the public to see those numbers rather than percentages. We're talking less than $6 from 2015 to this new increase. Is that correct?
Yes, that very last slide shows that exact figure.
I guess I feel like I need to emphasize that. We're looking at a lot of numbers and graphs and everything, and I think it's important to put it in perspective to what other things cost in our society. Thank you.
This chart shows the usage per 1,000 gallons for other districts, water and sanitation districts, or cities. These are in order from the cheapest to the most expensive. What I'd like to point out is Woodman Hills is population of 8,000. Their sewer bill, based on 4,000 gallons, is around $36.12. Other similar-sized cities or districts would be Rifle, where their charge is $40.71 per month per 4,000 gallons used. The average usage on this chart for all of these cities or districts is $33.42. Our proposed increase, effective January 1st, 2017, is what our projected bill is $31.10, which is still below the average of these cities or districts.
Kip, real quick clarification, just which Ken brought up was that this is not going to affect people on septic.
That's correct.
So just
We do not charge.
there's no increase in water rates here. It's just sewer. Well,
Thank you. So moving forward, with those increases, we will be able to close that gap to meet that loan requirement of revenues exceeding expenses by 10%. This slide shows the additional revenue that we intend for these increases to see a revenue stream or collect on. This is the overall numbers. Additional revenue added into existing revenue, minus expenses with a net difference of $262. So we're just meeting that requirement.
And based on a very conservative guesstimate of tap fees.
Yes, that's a very good point, because tap sales are unpredictable at best. This is based off a selling of 10 wastewater taps. So for your total utility bill, at the end of the month, in 2015, based off 4,000 gallons, was $56.79. With the annual adjustment for 2016, it should be around $57.28. The increase we're proposing for 2017 would increase that total utility bill, water and sewer, to $62.39, or an increase of 8.9%.
That's the limit charge.
Which is $5.11. Any questions?
Thank you. Noel, you think that covers it?
I think that helps. Oh, and if you want to go over the changes that we are going to do to the plant real quick, if you don't mind.
Okay. So this picture is an aerial shot of the wastewater plant. The expansion will touch every single area of the plant. First, the biological process, which is up front of the plant, will be added onto. Secondly, the settling or the clarifiers, we'll be adding a third clarifier. Also, the sludge holding tank, which holds the byproduct after the treatment, will be added onto. And then that sludge then goes to a dewatering apparatus, which will be, the old one will be replaced with something newer and more efficient energy-wise, and will dewater sludge to a higher percentage. And also the disinfection process. So before the discharge enters Fountain Creek, we will be switching from chlorine to, or Trout Creek, thank you, switching from chlorine gas to ultraviolet disinfection. So every single aspect will be touched with this expansion.
And just as I recall, we'll go from 123% to 60% efficiency?
That would be ideal. I don't know the exact percentage, but around there.
Roughly.
Yes.
Not efficiency, of capacity.
Capacity,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because that's a real drop in efficiency when really we're actually increasing efficiency.
Yeah, my learning curve's like this, just letting you know.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. Any more questions?
Would you comment on the capacity of this new expansion in terms of supporting the population?
Population-wise, this plant will be able to, we would have to go and develop more water or buy more water or more water shares before the capacity of this plant will be reached. However, I can't predict I can't predict water conservation measures and more low flow or efficiency of fixtures will come out in the future, but this should be able to handle us to about 14,100 people. And water-wise, we can serve, at full build-out, 12,600.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason for that overage is we do have more people on sewer than our water system. For example, Teller County Water and Sanitation District, their sewer, we collect their sewer system, or their waste through their sewer system and treat that. Now, we do have some subdivisions that are on septic systems, so we do not handle that, but we do have additional sewer taps, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, council?
Kind of a more of a side thought. Do we have the ability for septic for I can't think of waste trucks that go out there and clean out septic tanks? Do we have a dumping for them?
We do not. We went down that road with the expansion to be able to handle additional septic haulers and disposing of their waste,
Right.
and we're simply not big enough to be able to do that. When you start talking about hauling septic waste, you have a very high concentration
Okay.
that you would be, or they would be, dropping off at our facility at one moment. So it'd be like a big slug, and our facility is not big enough to handle septic haulers and their waste.
Okay, because I could see that if we could, that would be a nice fee. We could make
We-
some money there.
We looked at that, and that was an additional $2 million to be able to handle that kind of waste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just don't live in that world of terminology. I'm sorry.
Nor do I. Any other questions of
good thing.
council?
I will say this, the plant, improving the plant, I believe is a needed project. Being new to the council, really, that's all I have to say. It is necessary for this community to develop its wastewater storage treatment plant. I think it's a solid project, and I just, it's good for the community. Sorry for the increase in the price, but there has to be a price somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go to public comment. Mr. Offey, would you like to come forward?
Yeah, do I go up there?
Please. State your name and your address, please.
My name is Joseph Hopfe. I live at 201 Eagles Perch Place, Woodland Park, Colorado.
Tell these folks where you go to college.
I went to school at UC Berkeley, but now I'm finished up. So my question was, how many years do we expect it will take for that 60% to reach back up to 100%?
I don't know. This will carry us to our water build-out and beyond. It all depends on the measures of water conservation.
Okay. And will these additions allow for, or easily allow for more additions in the future?
We do have the ability to expand it one more time, depending on what conditions are current at that time. So the plant is being designed so we can add additional clarifiers. The disinfection is designed to handle higher volume, and there are other technologies out there that we could add to it to create additional organic loading,
Okay.
or to handle that additional organic loading.
All right, thank you.
Good questions.
Thank you, sir.
We don't have solar power out there at all, do we?
No, sir.
Is that an option? Just to run the internal administrative stuff?
We could pursue it, just takes money.
Oh, yeah, everything takes money, but just thought,
We've looked at those other alternative energy options on several projects, and
Uh-huh.
usually it's more expensive.
is there any tax break for it? I mean,
Not a tax break, no.
Or a tax
And
credit.
IRA doesn't really have a rebate program like Excel and others. We often have thought every project we've worked on over the recent history, we always kind of look at that when we're doing the YMCA, when we did the fleet maintenance shop, and we've explored options of using City Hall as kind of a solar energy farm. The numbers just aren't there to justify it and make it money worthwhile for us. But that's changing all the time, so we continue to look at it in each and every one of these projects.
Well, one of the things you had mentioned was that we're using chlorine now to treat the sewage, and we're going to UV treatment. Is there any incentive, financial incentive for doing that? Or have we already received that credit?
Yeah, that was how we qualified for the 20% green reserve on the first 2 million at 0%.
There are also ways to, there are also ways to help in the process of cleaning the water through natural vegetation, which some plants do, and they're going a great ways in that area. And in the future, we could look at that. And it definitely is a way to save money, to increase the capacity at a certain point where you can let this go, and then naturally it could be treated. And there are other areas you could look at.
I would like to make one comment too, is, our plant, every wastewater plant is expensive to operate. However, we save money with the new dewatering apparatus, new disinfection, and also our composting. We're one of the only plants in the state that actually compost. Most other facilities have to ship or haul their sludge to a landfill or land apply it somewhere, where we develop a compost and give it away.
A reminder, that's available to our citizens as a
Free.
great asset. Makes the grass green.
Good point.
does it stink?
Among other things.
No.
No, it doesn't.
And by cutting out the chlorine, you actually improve the safety of the community. I mean, liquid chlorine is pretty deadly. And so there's a step in the right direction. The ultraviolets, really is.
Well, I guess we've discussed all three, haven't we?
Yeah, and just to clarify, we're discussing ordinance 1276 and 1277. Is there any more public comment? Okay, if not, the public hearing will be closed, and council, if there's no more questions, call for a motion to approve ordinance number 1276. We'll take these one at a time.
Move approval of ordinance 1276 as presented.
Second. Thank you. Suzanne?
Sawyer,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Matthews,
Yes.
Swanier.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. And then a motion to approve ordinance number 1277. So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Suzanne?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Matthews,
Yes.
Swanier,
Yes.
Sawyer.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. And unless there's further discussion, a motion to approve resolution number 806.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Harvey,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Swanier,
Yes.
Sawyer,
Yes.
Harvey.
Oh, sure. Yes again.
Thank you. Motion, pardon me. Motion carries unanimously.
I get to vote, don't I?
Voted for you. I apologize.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Kip, thanks very much for the great explanation for all of us. Appreciate that.
The work session was very, very helpful. Thank you.
You're
Thank
very
you,
welcome.
Kip. It was, doing it twice really enforced it.
Okay, I have no public comment on items not on the agenda. If there's anybody here that'd like to say anything? Okay, if not, we'll move on to mayor's reports, and I've got a few announcements to make. Saturday, April 23rd, the 17th Annual Kid Fest, sponsored by the Resource Exchange, Ute Pass Cultural Center from 9 till noon, and that's a free event. Also on the 23rd, the Panther Recycling event at the middle school, 10 to 2. There's a small fee for most items. Wednesday, April 27th, the Chamber of Business Roundtable, Are You Ready for Summer? Ute Pass Cultural Center from 7:30 until 9. And Thursday, April 28th through Saturday, April 30th, the Ute Pass Munchkin Market at the Woodland Park Community Church, Thursday from 5 to 8, Friday from 9 to 1 and 5 to 8, and Saturday from 9 to 1. And that's all the announcements I have. Maybe we should talk about the student art before I move forward. Mr. Alsbach, thank you very much. This comes from Sierra Wilson at Woodland Park High School. She's a junior at the high school, and elevate your education. And as we always mention, there are a number of these for businesses or individuals that would like to post them in their business, and all you need to do is contact the school administration. That said, we will move on. Council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a letter here from the Department of Interior. If you recall, a few months ago, the city applied to become a certified local government program. The Department of Interior has approved our application for that designation. This now provides us an ability to apply for grants, is it matching grants or? No match grants, which is much better. And then another very important aspect of now being in the CLG program is that gives us certain qualifications for the the Main Street program, which just ratchets up the notch of our certification as a Main Street city. I'd like to read one of the statements from Megan Brown, who is the chief of the State Tribal Local Plans and Grants Program. She's welcoming the City of Woodland Park as a local partner in the Federal Preservation Program, and she does look forward to working with us and preserving what makes this community special and significant. So we've been added to their database, and if you go to nationalparkservice.gov, you will now find Woodland Park listed there as a certified local government program. And thank you very much to Sally and her staff for doing the yeoman's work on this application. It is significant for the city, but more important, it is for the Main Street program as well. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Carol. Mr. Matthews?
Just a couple of things. Keep Woodland Park Beautiful Committee. Only thing I'd say there is to keep an eye out for upcoming cleanup for the city as well as the cemetery. And that's a big event that will be taking place. On a different note, and since Debbie's here, I'd just like to compliment the chamber. I was able to attend one of the many chamber seminars or programs or whatever you'd like to call it. And this particular one happened to be on digital marketing. It was free, and they're just excellent. You need to watch for those that the chamber offers. It's really an asset to our community to have some of these programs brought to us. Some of them cost a little bit, but not much, and some are free. But just to compliment the chamber for a job well done.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Saunier?
No comments. Thank you, everybody, for their patience with me. Have a good night.
You are a quick study, I must say.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to our city attorney.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
You have nothing. Okay. City Manager's report,
Nothing, sir.
nothing. Would you, because I've been asked by a few, can you give us a little idea of when we're going to break ground on the pool?
I'd be happy to. We continue to move through the design process with our architects. And to make a long story short, it appears that we'll be able to do the foundation groundbreaking middle to the end of May. It's our hope to do the groundbreaking the last week of school, which I think is May 16th through the 20th. There'll be some mobilization. Really, work can begin. We can schedule a groundbreaking at any time. But I think it would be exciting to have as much of the community as there as possible. So look for that announcement to come out within the next couple of weeks for sometime in the middle of May.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I think we have nothing else this evening, so thank you all for coming, and this meeting is adjourned.